This is no longer a ceasefire. This is a controlled chokehold on the world's most critical energy artery. More than 48 hours after the guns supposedly went silent, only 7 ships have passed through the Strait of Hormuz. 6 cargo vessels, just 1 oil tanker, and it wasn't even Western, it was Chinese. That's not stability, that's not normalization, that's a signal, a warning sent quietly but understood by every major power watching. Because while headlines say ceasefire, the reality unfolding beneath the surface tells a completely different story. The United States has paused direct strikes on Iran, at least for now, but Iran is still launching attacks toward Gulf targets. Israel continues its operations over Lebanon, and Hezbollah is still firing rockets into Israeli territory. So let's not dress this up as peace. This is not peace. This is a war paused mid-motion, with every side still armed, still active, still calculating its next move. And in the middle of it all, Iran isn't just fighting with missiles. It's doing something far more strategic. It's controlling the flow. Tehran has made it clear that the Strait of Hormuz will not return to normal operations anytime soon. Not until there is a long-term agreement that guarantees their position. Instead, they are tightening access, reportedly limiting the number of ships allowed to pass each day, possibly imposing coordination requirements with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, even hinting at toll-like mechanisms. What was once a global shipping lane is now being reshaped into a geopolitical checkpoint, and the world is watching but not fully reacting. Not yet. Because what makes this situation even more dangerous is that no one actually knows the full details of the ceasefire agreement. There is no single publicly confirmed document, no unified version. Only fragments, statements, interpretations, each released selectively by different sides to serve their own narrative. And that ambiguity is not just confusion, it's instability. Because into that vacuum of clarity steps the most explosive issue right now, Lebanon. While officials in Washington insist that Lebanon was never part of the ceasefire, Iran and several mediators strongly suggest the opposite. And that contradiction has now turned into bloodshed. Israel has carried out what is being described as the largest strike of this war so far. Not on a remote military outpost, not on an isolated battlefield, but deep within civilian areas in Lebanon. No meaningful evacuation warning, no visible pause. The result? Over 200 people dead, more than 1,000 injured, and a country already on the brink pushed even closer to collapse. And suddenly, the ceasefire begins to look less like a diplomatic success and more like a temporary illusion. European governments have condemned the strike. Iran is signaling that this could be grounds to withdraw from negotiations entirely. And within Lebanon itself, anger is spreading in every direction. Anger at Hezbollah for pulling the country into a conflict many never wanted. Anger at Israel for the scale and intensity of the response. Anger at the United States. Anger at their own government, which many feel has no real control over what is happening inside its own borders. Because here is the part often overlooked in global narratives. A significant portion of the Lebanese population does not support Hezbollah. They do not want to be part of this war. They do not want to be used as a front line in a regional power struggle. But they are the ones absorbing the consequences. They are the ones living under the bombs. They are the ones caught between forces far larger than themselves. And as if that were not enough, the humanitarian situation is quietly deteriorating at a global level. Aid budgets are being cut, not increased. In fact, over the past year, there has been an estimated 50% reduction in humanitarian assistance worldwide, led in large part by Western countries. The United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, many have scaled back. And the effect is immediate. Fewer resources, fewer staff, less capacity to respond. Organizations that once operated at scale are now shrinking, even as crises expand. This creates a dangerous cycle. Less aid leads to greater instability. Greater instability fuels more conflict. More conflict further strains the already limited aid system. And the cycle continues, feeding itself, growing more severe with each turn. What we are witnessing is not just a geopolitical crisis. It is a systemic breakdown of both political and humanitarian frameworks at the same time. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, negotiations continue, or at least they attempt to. But even that process is becoming increasingly chaotic. There isn't just one peace proposal on the table. There are multiple, at least 3 different versions of what has been referred to as a 10-point plan from Iran. One reportedly dismissed outright, another considered somewhat realistic and usable as a basis for negotiation, and a third described as even more extreme than the first. And here's where things become even more complicated. Some of these proposals may not even originate from official government channels. There are indications that at least one version may have come from unofficial or fringe sources, later amplified through media networks and mistaken for an official negotiating position. In a conflict this sensitive, that kind of confusion is not just a minor issue. It is combustible, because misinformation, whether intentional or accidental, can derail fragile negotiations faster than any missile. Inside Iran itself, the situation is far from unified. There are multiple factions, each with their own agenda. Some pushing for diplomacy, recognizing the economic and strategic cost of prolonged conflict. Others pushing for escalation, driven by ideology, leverage, or internal power dynamics. And then there are elements within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps who benefit from the continuation of conflict. Because war, in many systems, consolidates authority. It centralizes control. It creates conditions where power can be expanded and maintained with fewer challenges. So within Iran, just like in many countries, this is not a single voice speaking. It is a chorus of competing interests. And the outcome of that internal struggle will heavily influence what happens next on the global stage. All of this now converges on a single critical moment. A meeting scheduled in Islamabad. A direct engagement between representatives of the United States and Iran. On the surface, it is just another diplomatic session. But in reality, it is a litmus test for the entire ceasefire. If Iran shows up, negotiations remain alive. Fragile, uncertain, but alive. If Iran does not show up, then the ceasefire, in practical terms, collapses. And Iran has already set its condition clearly. Continued Israeli strikes in Lebanon could be enough to justify walking away. So the situation becomes a high-stakes equation. Military actions on one front directly influencing diplomatic survival on another. Every strike, every response, every decision feeding into whether talks continue or fall apart. And when you step back and look at the full picture, the pattern becomes clear. A restricted Strait of Hormuz limiting global energy flow, ongoing proxy conflicts across multiple fronts, a ceasefire agreement with unclear terms and disputed boundaries, civilian casualties rising sharply, humanitarian systems under strain, negotiations clouded by conflicting information, internal divisions within key players, and all of it unfolding simultaneously. This is not de-escalation. This is pressure building beneath the surface, layer by layer, because the most dangerous phase of any conflict is not always the initial explosion. Sometimes it is the moment that looks like calm. The moment where movement slows just enough for systems to reset, for positions to shift, for strategies to evolve. A pause that is not truly a pause, but a transition. And that is where we are right now. A pause that carries the weight of everything that came before it, and the uncertainty of everything that could come after. If this pressure releases through diplomacy, it could stabilize one of the most volatile regions in the world, at least temporarily. But if it breaks in the opposite direction, if negotiations fail, if strikes continue, if misunderstandings escalate, then what follows will not remain contained. It will move through global energy markets. It will affect supply chains. It will pull in additional actors. And it will reshape the geopolitical landscape far beyond the region itself. So while the language of ceasefire continues to circulate, what we are actually witnessing is something far more fragile, far more complex, and far more dangerous. Not peace, not yet. Just a moment suspended between escalation and resolution. And the next move from any side could decide which direction the world goes next.